You ever have, like, so many thoughts going through your head that you just wanna take a nap?
Yeah, like every day,
You
like
said
every second
you
of
said,
every day.
"Actually, that's just how I exist."
Yeah.
How do we start these?
Start splaining, man. That's how you start it. Get to splaining.
Hello, Beans.
Hey, Beans.
This is Tori and my lovely husband.
Hey. What's up, guys? This is Patrick.
So, you were asking what we're gonna do today. I wanna talk about self-help.
Okay.
That's the vibe.
Is it like a self-help book or
It might be. Imma tell you.
okay.
I don't know why I'm keeping secrets today.
All right. You're very secretive.
Okay, so we'll start off to see if you have any idea of, like, what we're talking about. Do you know who Mel Robbins is?
No.
Do you know what Stoicism is?
No.
Okay. Like, at all?
Like is it being stoic?
Yeah. So, being a Stoic okay, so, like, you know how, like, if you're optimistic, you're
Pessimist? Pessimistic?
yeah, so
Is like
yeah.
your
Yeah.
perceived notion of existence and like reality and like how you
Yeah.
perceive things.
Yeah, so if you're optimistic, you're an optimist. So if you believe in stoicism, you are a stoic.
Okay.
So stoic is like a type of person. Now, stoicism is an old philosophy. So it says stoicism was founded in ancient Agora of Athens by Zeno. I thought there was okay, so yes. Marcus Aurelius was the one that I'm used to hearing about, but there are those are Roman he's one of the big 3 Roman Stoic philosophers.
Continue.
Thanks for the permission.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stoicism is a philosophy that says that we can and honestly, like, I think it's pretty popular, even if people don't know what they're directly referencing. It's an opinion that or a philosophy that says that we can not really control the things on the outside of us, but we can control how we react to those things, which is pretty true, I feel like. On the outside, there's a lot of things that are outside of our control, and on the inside, you know, like if you go to therapy, they'll talk about, these things happen, but you can control how it affects you.
Right.
And s but there's, like, a further step with stoicism. So, I think, we can control how things affect us, so that has a lot to do with, like, maybe taking a bad experience and processing it and allowing it to, like, you know
Finding silver linings of
That's yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, or not necessarily always putting a positive spin on it, but finding the good in life and that kinda thing.
Mhm.
Stoicism is more that we should it reminds in, like, very simplified terms, in my brain, it reminds me of just being, like, extremely passive. So, a lot of Stoics believe that to live a good life, you have to be or the goal of living a good life is being morally astute. And if someone lives by pursuing, like, their morals and not really letting the outside world affect them, then they will, live a good life, quote unquote. That's the whole point of stoicism. So, if like let's take some things that are happening today. Let's take the war in Iran, right? Iran.
Alright.
I hear it pronounced both ways.
It just depends on what part of the country you're from.
Well, let's just say that I'm a stoic and I'm trying to approach this. So, I'm not pro-war. I don't believe in that. But I also don't want to become overly consumed with feelings. So, stoicism, and this is like a very extreme case. This is on a national scale instead of a personal scale. But stoicism would say that we don't need to have extreme reactions that, like, overtake us. We just need to perform actions that allow us to move forward in whatever moral compass that we have. So, if you are wanting to support like specific families, or you want to do some research to make people more informed, whatever actual action you want to take that will align with whatever your values are, Stoicism encourages you to do that without the feeling part of it.
Right.
And Stoicism doesn't say that we don't have feelings. It just says that, we can control the things inside of us. And the goal is to kind of get this. I always think of like a statue of a man, like the thinker. I think of him as like a Stoic icon in my mind. And there's a lot of history into that, but I just wanted to start off with kind of what Stoicism is, at very least to me. Again, I'm just someone who reads. I'm not a professor or anything like that. So this is an extremely simplified version of Stoicism. And if you're more interested in that idea or that philosophy, there are a lot of like good podcasts and good books to read. There's one podcast called Philosophize This, and there's a lot about Stoicism in that podcast.
Huh.
But also be kind of careful, because I have noticed that a lot of like manosphere podcasters are like all about Stoicism, but they don't really understand. It's almost like it's being translated into a form of toxic masculinity in some cases.
Well, it seems like it can be easily misinterpreted as a toxic coping mechanism of like compartmentalizing and bottling up your emotions, which is very easy to do. Like, I can't honestly relate to Stoicism because it's so easy for me to fall into the trope of just not talking about how I feel and, taking on, trying to be like Atlas and feel like I'm taking on the weight of the world all on my own. Like, it's very easy to fall into that trope. I mean, at least with society. I know personally for me, it's easy. Now, I obviously can't speak for every single human being, and much less every man that, that's the way we feel. But it's very common for guys to not talk about how they feel.
Yeah, I wonder. So I used to kind of idolize Stoicism when I was younger, and I was just learning about a lot of different philosophies. However, now that I am older, I know that I want to interact with the world around me in a very emotional way. I want my emotions to affect the world around me, because that allows me to feel human. It allows me to feel human, to interact with the world around me in accordance to how I feel and my emotions. But I think you feel this way as well. When you're growing up and a lot of your reasoning and a lot of your like mental processes happen inside of your brain, and you're not super great, or maybe you don't have the resources to talk about what's going on in your brain to the people around you. Hearing about Stoicism, and especially because it does give a bit of like structure to how you should handle that internal thought,
Right.
it seems beneficial when maybe you don't already have that structure, but you are doing a lot of internal work. Not necessarily that you're working on yourself, but that like you don't, and maybe that's why it falls so heavily with men, is men often do a lot of their emotional work internally.
Yeah.
And women, not always, but often are more external with their emotions. And then you run into Stoicism, who says, okay, it's good to handle this internally.
Yeah, it's giving you validation for
How you do it, and then also, a bit of a moral compass of like, this is how Stoics think of things, this is how we value things, this is what would, like, again, structure that thinking to come up with a way to live life.
Yeah. Well, being a much more emotional person, I mean, I've been emotional my entire life.
It's crazy that but I mean, again, that points towards you, kind of being in a society where men are expected to not show their emotions as much.
Right.
I don't often see that emotional side of you until like you choose to kind of let it out, or you can't like handle having it inside anymore.
Right. I mean, I know even from a very early age, like, I do talk to a lot of friends and stuff like this, that I am a blue collar worker, and being in a blue collar industry, I'm not going to say mental health is completely shut out. It's definitely more accepted and like understood and heard now more than it ever has been.
Yeah.
But being in that industry and being a male of very emotional like needs and like desires that I have as a person, It is difficult at times to connect with coworkers, but I always try. I think everybody to a certain degree is emotional.
Oh,
I mean, there's
yeah.
obviously the neurological differences, definitely like outliers to it, but the majority of the time, most every male has a soft side to him. It's just how many layers are on top of it that you have to either A, peel through, or they unlock the doors to allow you to talk to them and stuff. You know, I do have deep conversations with a lot of coworkers and stuff, but I think I kind of have always worn my heart on my sleeve. I feel like because not because, "Ooh, it's different, it's unique," but that's just who I am as a person. I
Well,
have to be open to people because it allows me to not feel like I'm carrying everything all the time, because I do have a lot of feelings about a lot of stuff. Now, I will say, as a male, I didn't have, for lack of better terms, the proper home training on how to process my emotions and how much my emotions influenced my decisions and how I perceived things. There was definitely a certain point, especially late high school, early like adulthood, that I was terrified of allowing my emotions to dictate my decisions. I felt like my emotions making the decisions were as positive as me closing my eyes and just shooting a gun in a general direction. It felt very uncontrolled. It felt very rampant. And to me at the time, like I didn't want that. But I kind of realized that there is definitely a middle ground in between thinking very logically and processing through your emotions and rationalizing and seeing, are these decisions being made rashly based off of my emotions, or are they thought out? They're going to be beneficial. Is this the best decision I can make? You know?
so did you ever you're talking a lot about yourself and how you handled it from a
Right.
place of what do they call it? They call it internal honest or onus, where you believe that you had control over the situation.
Right.
Did you ever feel like it was the world against you? Like the world was making all these decisions and you couldn't do anything about it?
I did very early. I actually had a mental break freshman year of high school because of that. I felt very focused on all of the things that were happening. I had a lot of bad, negative things happen, but, you know, it was a very early development point in my life. And I was like, well, this is great. If this is life, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I can't do this. Like, I just immediately caved in and like I said, being somebody who's very emotional and allowed the emotions to dictate how I felt and continue on with life, I was like, yo, if this is it, I'm feeling for everybody and anything around me. And I can't do that.
Well, it also seems like, you didn't feel like you had the control.
No, I didn't.
Like, you couldn't any of the bad things that were happening, like, I know one thing that happened is your aunt was diagnosed with cancer,
Yeah.
and you can't do anything about that. That is something out of your control, and that's, a terrible thing that happens, and it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, being a kid in development without the control, that's a really hard thing to go through.
Yeah. And I mean, I knew it was kind of like not a predisposition, but kind of like I knew it was a possibility of happening because of how emotional I was and how I kind of perceived things a lot differently. Because my litmus test that I had was my older brother. He was 2 years older than me. We weren't super close, but I knew I was a lot different than he was, which is like me and my brother are oil and water. We're completely different. Like we do not mix. We did not mix for the longest time. We do now. We're good. Love each other. But
I think you guys have learned to really appreciate your differences.
yeah, and that's something that's beautiful that like not everybody gets out of their family. And I think me and Nick have come to appreciate, what small similarities we have. We celebrate those and cherish those. But like when it comes to topics and stuff like that, I love talking with him about it because he's very logical, very numbers, very direct, very pointed, very like to put in perspective, he has an accounting degree. Okay. Like I could
What
probably
but, you have them. you're a mechanical engineer, you're a diesel engineer,
Right.
you're also very particular, but it's just in a different way.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's funny to me about it is it's like, I'm not saying that, well, he's just way smarter than I am. We're both very smart. I know that.
Yeah.
We're just very smart in different avenues,
Mhm.
and it's just so funny to me that we,
It's like
like, full circle around and come to appreciate each other, and it's like, at
it
the end of the day, we don't really have anything in common,
it's
but,
like when
like
the math teacher is having everyone solve a problem, but 2 people do it different ways and get the right answer.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, today's book is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. It's a self-help book, loosely. So, Mel Robbins is a inspirational speaker. That's what she's known for. And I listened to the Let Them Theory for a few different reasons. I'd seen it online a long time ago. I have a friend that she said she had started listening to it and she liked a lot of the information that she was getting. And then also, I saw some different things pop up where she was kind of talking on podcasts, and I was just kind of interested in what it was. And I also, sometimes I get into my moods of I want to listen to a self help book. So, the Let Them Theory. The whole book is revolved around what she calls the Let Them Theory. And she presents it as this theory that she has developed that is very stoic coded. And a lot of the people I've seen online have kind of talked about it as a rewrapped version of stoicism, but I think that it's also mixed with a lot of modern, like, and you can tell in the book that she pulls so much from her own personal life to develop this theory, this let them theory. And I think it is a mix of stoicism and then being in the modern world and thinking, I'm going through these things. How can I find a way or almost like a mantra to help me through these things? She also cites a good bit of research. She talks to different doctors and professionals. I think that part's really cool. So she'll say, maybe you don't want to hear this, but professionals say, or all of the doctors I've reached out to say, and she'll name these doctors and say, direct advice from them. So what is the let them theory, right? Like what is this? Let them is this almost constantly repeated mantra that is introduced in the book that says, you know, someone's doing something and it bothers you, let them. So what's your first immediate thought when someone says that?
Uh, Work environment
Yeah. So,
stuff.
if you I'm assuming you're thinking, like, a negative interaction and someone tells you, like, "Well, just let them."
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, I kinda do that in a sense.
You already kinda do that?
Yeah, to a degree, but it's mainly to control anxiety. Usually, like, if I feel very anxious about something, I just kinda, like, realize, like, you shouldn't really feel anxious because at the end of the day, like, you can't decide how, you know, release the reins to somebody else is kind of my thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, it might negatively impact you or whatever, but at this moment, the way I have to look at it, especially with work, is you're only here for 10 hours a day. Once you're done with this, like, you're done in, like, the next 2 hours. You're done. You have time to, like, live your life and rest and take care of yourself and do whatever you want to. But for right now, like, your boss can be an asshole or do whatever he thinks is best, but that really shouldn't affect you because it's only got it for, another hour, you know?
So let them.
Yeah.
My first thought is thinking about, like, gossip. Like,
Well,
people that may not like you, or you're thinking, "Oh, I think they're talking about me," or, well, okay, let them.
yeah.
Let them. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to matter to you.
Yeah.
And I think that is a fair tool to be in your toolbox. I don't think it is the way we should approach everything, but there is definitely this, at least for me, where I'll take things a little bit too personally. I have a tendency to do that. I'll think that Or, I'll think that I can fix something. We've
Yeah.
had that a lot in our relationship where it'll be like, something bad will happen or we'll have just like a little disagreement or something. And it's like, instead of just saying, let him, like let you forget something or do something a way I don't think you should be doing it. Like, I can just let you do those things instead of trying to micromanage or, feel like I need to take the reins on a situation to make it perfect.
Right.
And in that way, I think the idea of let them is very good.
Yeah.
And when she talks about it in the book, she references like raising her children and just different things. Like one part of the book, she talks about how she had a lot of friends that were not inviting her to things. Like she had this one group of friends she really wanted to hang out with, and the friends just weren't inviting her. And she like felt really bad about it. She was like, "What's wrong with me? Why don't they like me anymore? Blah blah blah." And the response was kind of like, "Let them. Like just let them." Kind of almost like let it roll off your back, which is very stoic coded. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point of stoicism is like not letting things just eat at you.
Yeah.
Or at
Well,
least that's the positive part of stoicism.
well, you know who taught me uh, which just actually makes a lot of sense now thinking about it. You know who taught me that anxiety thing that I was just kind of talking about, where I kind of just like
Oh, the thing of like, it's not the end of the world if this happens. Like, it's only
will
temporary.
worry about it when it's time to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know who taught me that?
Who?
Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seems like a person who wants to be very stoic.
Yeah. But I think he does fall into the tropes that I was just talking about earlier with
Mm-hmm.
the I'm so stoic, it's just anything I feel, just shove it deep down inside,
Until
and
I can't, until that bottle gets way too full.
dude, it is so easy to do that. It is so easy to do that,
Yeah.
man. Like, it is
And it's almost
so
expected, I think, especially for men.
and it's not even no, I mean, it's so it's not even outside influences that make me wanna do that. It's just all internal, like, it's like, I'll just deal with this when I have time to deal with this,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, and
it's
that's not
like
really how humans work.
no, it's not because you never have time to deal with it. Like, the best time to deal with it is when it's there. I mean, I
And
guess the best way to think about emotions is think about them like bills. Like, when you get a bill in the mail, pay it right then. You're gonna forget about it, and it's gonna come back up.
and it's gonna
Like,
and you're gonna owe
yeah,
interest.
your fucking lights are gonna be shut off, alright? Like
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that and also the more you handle your emotions in the moment, the more practice you have handling your emotions in the moment. I think it's important.
because, I mean, that was something I struggle with is breaking the chain of, your constant thought process. I mean, there's a lot of self-work and self-help is changing how you perceive things and how you react to things,
Mhm.
and
You're
that's changing instinct because, I mean, man, when you've been doing things, especially, me being, like, 27, you instinctually do things at a certain point. I've been doing this way for 27 years. I'm still here. I'm still breathing, like
but that doesn't mean you couldn't be happier
exactly.
or
And
handle
that's
things
yeah,
better,
and that's the kind of the
make
way
deeper
that you have
connections.
to, look back at it and be like, "Whoa, I could be doing it different." And so it's you gotta have little things that you do, little mini games to help change your way and change your thought process and kinda rewire some things to optimize it better.
Well, and also, like, in our relationship, I think there is a give and take. So you are more inactive and I am more active. So I am the person or proactive is what I should say. I proactively think I should like take care of all these things and do everything. And I think I, as a woman who is kind of like I feel like I'm a little hard coded to do these things. I think I could benefit a lot from the let them theory and saying like, hey, let go of the reins. Just let it go. You don't
Yeah.
have to control everything. Not everything is your fault, not everything is your responsibility, you know?
Well, I think I tried to be more proactive at certain points in my life.
No. Well, and I think that now you are becoming more proactive in a positive way
Exactly,
because, like,
but
you kinda would benefit, in my opinion, from the opposite, and maybe there's a reason you've become more inactive.
active. Well, so I have tried being proactive, it just drove me fucking insane. Like,
It
it
is a neurotic tendency.
it made me feel like I was losing my fucking mind. Like, I just, like it made me feel like a doomsday prepper, and
Yeah, that's kinda how it feels in my brain.
I can't deal with that. Like, I
Yeah.
just can't do that. So, like, I'm like, I'll deal with what happens when it happens.
Yeah,
And
but for
so
some things, like, especially I mean, we're married, we've been married for what, 4 years, 5 years, something like that, and the amount of proactive steps you now take in our relationship, like, in the home and, like, just in general, I think, especially recently, have greatly increased because you're like, I've told you, "Hey," a and part of it is, "Hey, I'm gonna let go of these reins," and, like, for these things to happen or things to get taken care of that need to be taken care of, you have to now be more proactive in these areas, but
right,
I definitely think it's a balance. So, the let them theory is about letting people just letting whatever happens kinda happen, not feeling like you constantly have to be in control of everything
let them try and come take my guns.
with their
They're
soft
so with
liberal
their
hands.
soft liberal hands. I can't stop thinking about that this whole entire time you've been saying let them. I'm like,
Let
let them come
them.
take me.
So, then she follows it up. So, she talks a lot about the let them theory, then she follows it up with the let me. So, she is very specific about how if we're gonna use the let them theory, we have to have a follow-up that is very important, that is the let me part of the let them theory. And so when she talks about, that group of friends that wasn't inviting her to these things that she wanted to do, once she got past, everything she was going through emotionally with that, she says, "Okay, let them go on all these things. Let me start reaching out and planning different trips, different activities. Let me start talking to my friends more. Let me start building this circle in a way that reflects how I actually want to build my life."
Yeah, the proactive part.
Yep. So, I like the let them, let me. I really like that because it says let them, you don't have control of other people, and then let me, okay, what do I have control over? What can I do for me? What can I do to change the situation? And she uses examples with her kids as well of like, you know, which kids are a little bit different. And I do really appreciate that she specifies this. She says, kids' brains don't fully develop until 25, around the age 25. And she says, they say that kids are adults at 18, but honestly, they're really not. 21 is a better age if you want to start, whatever.
25 was when I stopped hearing the voices.
Oh, interesting. It's
Yeah,
because your frontal lobe finally developed.
that's right. The mice finally retired. They were in there working overtime.
Yes. So, shit. So, with kids, if you are their parent, you cannot just let them. You
Let them. House is on fire. Let them.
they cannot be fully responsible for their actions.
Right.
You have to obviously, I think there is some, let them learn, let them, take risk, but you have to be that guiding force. And at the end of the day, let me take care of my kids, you know?
Yeah.
But she uses it in a lot of ways. She also talks about a friend she has who has a husband, and that's in relationships, which we'll get to that in a second. I wanna talk about something else first. So, part of the book, she gets pretty serious, and she starts talking about, handling people that are going through a really tough time, whether that is addiction or another extreme struggle. She talks about how the let them theory is really important in these cases because so many people end up enabling things,
Yep.
and and I do like this. So she talks about the let them being, you have to let them. You cannot control this person. And I think that that is, especially at least locally from my experience, how a lot of people feel, especially in the South, of like almost like writing people off because they're not, in a good place in life, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then she follows it up with what I really appreciated in the book the let me side of it, which is let me, you know, help this person in a way that is safe and supportive. So let them have control of their own life, go through whatever if they need to hit rock bottom, let them go through it. And then let me stand here and say, whenever you're ready, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you money, but if you want to come eat dinner with us, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And knowing knowing that you are not responsible for this person, but you are available to be part of their support system, I think that is one of the best ways you can support a loved one that's going through something.
Yeah, and it's for me personally,
Mhm.
it was really hard to find that, gray area, medium ground, middle ground area to support somebody without enveloping everything that I had into that. I think I struggled a lot with, especially in a dating atmosphere,
Mm.
of finding people who were in a tough spot and me being like, "Hey, it's okay. Like, I'm in a good spot. I can help you."
Almost saying, like, "I'm going to prove my worthiness to you by taking control of your issues."
Pretty much. And
Yeah.
it's the same way with like a kid. When a
Well,
kid is like, when you spoil a kid, or like, it's like with these celebrities, for example, like when you get a kid and you just give them all this money and then they don't develop any type of like certain skills or like real life skills. Well, you're doing them a disservice by doing that, because at the end of the day, like when you're not around or the money's not there, they don't have the tools required to complete the task at hand, which the task at hand is being happy and in having life, like in living life.
she goes on to talk about that in the next part.
Oh,
The next part is but it's obviously because we are obliged to take care of our children in whatever way possible. It's more geared towards adult children. So, people she would talk about, people would write her and say, "Look, I have this adult child. I pay for, their education, their apartment and everything, and they won't get their grades up. They won't, whatever." And one thing she says, which I think is harsh truth, is that if someone is funding your life, they have a seat at the table. They have they are buying their almost vote on how you handle your life.
right.
And even if, she was talking about, like, even if you're out of the house, even if you're off to college, if your parents are funding everything, they have a say as to what's going on. And I think that is a harsh truth. I know, like, especially it can be hard to handle that. I remember, you know, being a teenager is such a tough time.
Yeah.
But if you she makes the point of if you wanna do things your way, you gotta fund it. She talks about how, adult children, maybe they're off to college, maybe they're on their own, but, they're paying for their whatever, and they're just like, "I don't know how to get them on the right track." And she's like, "You gotta stop funding it."
Yeah.
And so, like, she used the example of if you have a kid that's off to college and they're, like, failing their classes and, like, tuition's going down the drain and blah, 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 and you want to set the rule of, you have to make at least C's in all your classes
Yeah.
for me to continue to support you and pay for your apartment, pay for your tuition, whatever. And she was like, "The most important thing is that you have to follow through with whatever you say."
Yep.
You have to be willing to literally she went as far as saying, like, if they become homeless, they become homeless.
Yeah.
And not saying that, like, those people wouldn't be allowed to come back into the house, like, at home with their parents, but saying, there has to be if you are going to teach your kid independence, you have to be willing to follow through and allow them to fall if that's their choice. And I do think that's important. Now, like, even I don't have kids, but it's even hard for me to think of being like, "Oh, well, the quote unquote nice thing to do would be to support and do all these things, and I even think about, sometimes you have friends or you have, like, siblings or whoever that you're trying to do all of these things for them, but you're not really doing them a service. You may be temporarily helping them a lot,
Mhm.
but long term, you are not going to be helping them. You're not helping them develop in any way, and they're not learning the skill set they need, especially if they're not asking for the help. And you are, again, proactively
Yeah.
trying to gain control of the situation.
Well, and I think your upbringing as well as mine had similar aspects in the way that independence was, at least with mine, I'm speaking wholly from my experience, but I have seen traits of it in your upbringing too. But I think the thing that I can really appreciate that my parents did is they sprinkled in a little bit of independence training from day one.
I think all parents try to in the best way they can.
Yeah. I have seen some parents where, like, there was absolutely no independence training whatsoever until 18 years old came up, and then it was, "Get the fuck out." Like, "You gotta get out there and figure it out."
Well,
And they would support them, but then they would
yeah.
start setting up these guidelines, and the kids just wouldn't understand because they had never been held to that standard before. Whereas, like, I'm not saying that my parents were, like, militant or anything like that on my upbringing, but there were certain aspects of, like, expectations. Like, there were expectations, very realistic expectations as a child that I was held to. Now, some as an adult, there were some that I feel like were kinda maybe a little unreasonable or a lot for me to handle, and, that has affected me as an adult. But I do appreciate the fact that when I became 18 years old, I was wanting to be independent from a healthy place in my life. I wasn't wanting to be independent because I can't stand my mom and dad. I have to get out of the house. I wanted to be independent because I wanted to grow as a human being. And
Well,
I think that was something that was really cool, at least with my life, was the fact that my parents nurtured somebody who was optimistic about growing.
yeah, instead of either being terrified or
It wasn't a
angry
drag,
or yeah. Well, but I see where parents come from when they're not wanting kids to be independent
Yeah,
because kids should be allowed to be kids, you
yeah,
know? Especially from a young age. Of course, they need to be independent in a lot of ways, but the balance of, how much independence do we push on them? How much independence, how many things do we take care of? Obviously, infants, you're the bloodline,
yeah,
but, as you get older, how do you loosen that rein? But so then I wanna go on to adult relationships. So she talks a little bit about, handling I say adult relationships, that's adult relationships with children. But she talks specifically about, marriage or partnerships, and she actually has a lot of really good dating advice. She has, like, a 30-day rule where, like, if you break up, you need 30 days no contact. She has, when you're dating and you're out having fun, which she encourages you to, like, date, as much as possible. And she says that it's really important when you see someone that you do see potential with, and they're like, maybe this person that you see potential with is not approaching the relationship in a way that says, "Hey, I'm trying to be here for the long term." How to sit down with them. And she gives you step by steps on, like, how to have that conversation of, "I want more."
yeah,
And honestly, if I wish this was actually my favorite part of the book because I wish I would have had that ability when I was much younger. I wish I would have heard this and
yeah,
been able to discern, "Hey, even if this is okay, like, let's not say it's super bad or anything, is this what's going to help me grow? Is this a relationship that will grow? Is this someone who is pouring into me as I am pouring into them?"
yeah,
And the way she, like, helps people understand how to handle those relationships, she brings up, some scientific backed evidence. That is my favorite part of the book.
yeah,
Then she moves on to, long-term relationships, so marriages. And she talks about how sometimes you'll be in an adult relationship and there's something you want the other person to change. And a lot of people will just hammer away and say, you got to pick your socks up out of the floor. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. Look, and I'm pointing at myself, right? Because we we find 50 little socks in the floor all the time.
Yeah.
And let's just say that's just something about your spouse that you can't stand. I know you don't seem to mind it too much most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
Until there's 20 socks on the floor. But, you hammer away at this thing and ultimately it causes resentment. It causes resentment within you for, oh, this person isn't changing. Causes resentment within them to say, oh, this person isn't accepting me as I am.
Yeah.
And she says, if you were that person well, first of all, she does encourage therapy. And she says, if you want something to change, you just need to model that change.
Mm-hmm.
And allow that person, let them.
Yeah.
So she brings up how she has a friend who has a husband who had gained a lot of weight, and it wasn't about him gaining the weight, it was about heart health. And he, was at severe risk for a stroke and all of this other stuff, and she really just wanted him, like they had an at-home gym downstairs, and she just wanted him to work out with her and maybe make some healthier choices. And he was very much a couch potato. He liked watching movies all the time, get him some popcorn, really having a good time.
Do you talking about me over here?
No.
Okay.
This is in the book.
I was about to say, we don't have an at-home gym.
No, we don't.
We got one pig and 2 other dogs. I mean, they're all dogs, but that one kind of looks like a pig. Pig on a spit out there right now.
He just laying down, belly hanging out. So, no, it's a relationship she talks about directly in the book. And she talks about this friend and how she's been kind of pushing for, her husband to do these things. And she's at the point where she's fed up. She's like, he just won't take this seriously. And it's his health. And, I want us to be together for a long time. I want us to grow old together. I'm so scared. I'm so worried. Well, firstly, she says, you can't control this man. You need to let him do what he needs to do. But you need to be there for support. So what she encourages is, first of all, if you want someone to start working out every day, go work out every day. Show that person you care about why it's important to you. Because to sit here and say, you need to work out, you need to be healthier, and you're sitting on the couch watching a movie all the time, that's an absolutely ridiculous expectation. So she'll go get on the Peloton and she'll want him to start working out with her. And the point isn't to ever expect this person to actually make a change. But she's saying that you cannot expect she said the best way to show someone what could be better for their life is by
leading by example.
Leading by example and showing them, this can be fun, this can be good.
Yeah.
Because she's like, your husband is sitting there and he's watching, a show or a movie, and our brains are hardwired to want the easy route. And the easy thing for him right now is sitting there and watching that movie. Is he going to feel great about his body in a month when he's trying to go to the beach or when he can't, do the things with his kids that he wants to? No, he's going to be really upset. But that's not what he's thinking about right now when you're wanting him to go work out.
Yeah.
Instead, he's thinking about the path of least resistance, which is sitting here and chilling out. And you need to let him.
Yeah.
Let him make that decision for his life. And she says you should, so many months or something, you can start. There's one thing that if you've already been working on making this change, but you've been just hammering away at this other person about this thing, and that, at this point, your house is tense because you've been, being awful about this thing that you're frustrated and resentful for.
Mm-hmm.
You sit them down. She says usually in a car is the best place, she thinks. And you tell them, I'm really sorry that I have been pressuring you to do this thing. It's not okay. I shouldn't be putting that pressure on you. How do you feel about this thing? So, in the specific case of the man who was not very healthy, how do you feel about your weight? How do you feel about working out? And she said the most important thing is to in this conversation, is to not make any comments.
Mhm.
You are not there to give your opinion. You are not there to solidify. You are there to ask open-ended questions and be the best listener you can be.
Mm.
And if they, whatever they respond with, ask more questions. If they shut down and they say, like, I can't, I can't talk about this. Well, what's stopping you from being able to talk about this right now?
Yeah.
And she says, listen and just say, I hear you, I love you, and I support you. And then model the behavior. Do the thing that you think should be happening. And if the person makes a because you're not monitoring them. You're not watching, like, is this person following my example?
Yeah.
But if they do make a comment, say the husband says, I can't believe that so out of breath after these 2 flights of stairs, say another open-ended question, no judgment, but just, I can see that this upsets you. How does it make you feel to not be able to go up those steps?
Mm.
Because when people say those kind of things, especially about something they do already want to change about their life, they are trying to ease the discomfort they feel
Mhm.
and say, if I can express this discomfort and have, what is it, solidarity,
Yeah.
then I can soothe that with this person. But you're not there to soothe them, especially about this thing that they want to change and you want them to change.
Right.
You're there to provide support for the change.
Right.
And then she says, after you do that for 6 months or whatever, I think it's 3 or 6 months, I can't remember. I wanna say it's 6 months.
Yeah.
But once you allow that discomfort to be there, you model the change, and you are not pressuring them in any way. And she said, you may fail at this, but just remember to pick yourself back up and say, "I apologize. That was not what I should have done." At the 6-month point, you have to make a decision. You have to say, first of all, did the change happen? Did we see change? If we did see change, perfect, awesome. We're gonna keep going this way. If we did not see change, then you have to do the let me of, okay, is this a deal breaker or not? Because according to Mel, you have to do 2 things. 1, you have to say, this is a deal breaker. I'm gone. Like, this is something so big that I have to leave.
Yeah.
Now, she talks about, the woman with her husband, and she's not leaving because he won't take care of his health. That's a big thing, but
She's concerned about the health because of how much she cares about him in the
because of
first
how much
place.
she loves him.
Yeah.
And so she says, so your only other option is to shut up.
Yeah.
She says, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yep.
And she says at the end of the day, if you have done all of these steps and the person still has not changed, they are either not ready to change, they are not willing to change. This is who this person is going to be. And you cannot, even like through those 6 months where you're on the ball, you're making sure that you're there for support, you're modeling the behavior, you're showing how, like, fit you are in her case and how much you're enjoying, like, the health benefits and blah, blah, blah. At the end of those 6 months, if that change hasn't happened, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And you have to decide, am I okay with that? Am I okay with this change never happening, or am I gonna shut up about it? Or, like, am I gonna shut up about it, or am I gonna have to leave?
Right.
And that's really tough, but that's basically what they tell you in couples counseling. They tell you, like, these are the things we're gonna work on, and of course, if you're in couples counseling, you're both there working on it, which is important.
Yeah.
But they say at the end of the day, you can't make people change, and you have to decide what's a deal breaker and what's not.
Yeah.
And that's such a harder truth than saying, like, yeah, if you try hard enough, you can make this person change. I feel like there's so many people, especially in older generations, who will spend 40 years trying to get this one person to change a core habit or a core belief. And that's not how it works.
I'm listening to you talk about the steps of, like, being hands off but being hands on. Like, this approach to the let them, let me,
Yeah.
where to jump in, where to jump out type situation.
Yeah.
It has a lot of similarities between several different avenues and aspects that I have to deal with and have had to deal with. The two that stand out the most to me are leadership as well as Christianity,
Hmm.
which I'm not a active practicing Christian anymore, but usually the way that things were taught for Christianity was to lead by example, and especially
You
with
mean like
people.
in your church?
Yeah. Well, not even just in my church, but like in your day-to-day life, right? So,
Well, I mean, like, no, I don't know what you mean. Because I mean, I figure you're either getting that from your parents or your church or
like how it was explained to me
yeah, yeah.
through church.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
like usually with like sit downs, like I would.
Yeah, but it's something they want you to practice everywhere. Is that what you meant?
Well, yeah, but like also like I mean, the whole entire point of a Christian, not the whole entire point, but the one of the main focal points and like focus points is being evangelical and like sharing the word of Christ with one another and other people and non-believers and trying to get people into the church, right? So,
Yeah, which I don't see, that's the thing is, like, you say that it reminds you of Christianity, but I don't think so.
well, the way this is your truth and my truth are two completely different things.
Yeah,
But
100%. That's why I'm just bringing
yeah,
it up from my perspective.
so at least the way that I would have obviously like sermons, like you would go in and sit in the main church and they would
Mhm.
talk to the whole mass of people. I would always go afterwards and go talk with Steve. He was like a guy who would, some of me and my friends became pretty close with him. He was an older guy, but he was, old school rocker who turned Christian and all this other things. And he had a very interesting light on how to explain things that didn't follow mainstream, like everything is so generalized, I feel like, to appeal to the mass audience. When you have an individual set down, it feels much more personalized and it makes much more sense to that group of people that you're talking to. So, with us being all younger and talking with Steve, one of the big things was kind of like, yeah, you can't just go up to people and be like, you're going to burn in hell if you don't do this.
See, that's a lot of what I've seen is basically
It,
it's not necessarily, not always forcing it down people's throats, but definitely a high horse of some
right,
sort of like, this is the path you should choose because it's the better path.
right. And the thing that I really appreciated about that was that it didn't, the way Steve described it, and there was stuff that backed it up as well, was the fact that you can't allow yourself to sit on some type of high horse and be that way. You just lead by doing what you do every day and following your guidelines and being a compassionate, caring person. And when people know, and obviously you're openly Christian to people, right? Like you've said at certain points, there's things that people say that oh, they're probably go to church, they're probably Christian. And when people ask you questions about it, that's when you kind of start talking about it more. But you don't ever approach somebody and just be like, da da da, because people throw their walls up. And same thing with leadership, right? So, leadership, non religious aspects involved. With leadership, you can't make people do things that they don't want to do, that they're
Mhm.
not going to do. And typically, people have a negative reaction when you tell them to do things. So, with leadership, if you are just, say, for example, like a team lead, right? You're a mechanic. This is my avenue. You're a mechanic team lead, right? You got 6 other mechanics below you. Most people will take that opportunity and go and sit in an office and talk with people and try and be a collar guy. They got their collared shirt on, they're not getting dirty. Well, that's not your job. The mechanic is in your job title, right? So you are these other people that you are leading. So you have to do what they do. If people are being repulsive, don't want to do it, whatever, give them their tasks to do, and then you go and do it. You go do your other tasks that you're going to do that involve fixing things, and people will follow. People will respect that more than just,
Well, yeah, all the things that she talks about is backed by psychology. So, yeah, those are all like psychological things. Like
yeah,
the whole idea of presenting Christianity as this thing that could be beneficial to others by seeing other people get the benefits.
yeah,
That's a psychological way of doing it. Just
yeah,
like we were talking about the working out, if
yeah,
you, are showing, if you got gains, And when it comes to it also, feels kinda like you were saying, if you're in a leadership position, you are doing the work instead of just sitting around and, telling people what to do. It is this sense of camaraderie. "Hey, we're all doing this. I'm no better."
Mm,
Because I think in the personal relationship, when you're just, downing someone or not necessarily downing them, but, like, wanting them to constantly change this thing, it also comes off as you're on a high horse, like, "I want you to get your socks up, and I'm better than you because I always put my socks up."
yeah, it's a building up instead of a tearing. Well, it feels like a tearing down in that moment, but
Yeah.
the ideal situation is to build up instead of tear down.
Ideal. And honestly, just not I think and I know I'm this way, I think you are too. The moment I feel pressure to do something, that's the last thing I wanna do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. And that was kind of something we went on early with that I was like, don't tell me, ask me.
Yeah,
That's
it's kinda hard for me to and it's not even that I don't wanna ask you, it's that a lot of times I come across so bluntly
yeah,
that I'm just like it's almost like my brain is talking to you the same way it talks to itself.
yeah,
And I tell myself, "Hey, go do this." And I'll say, "Hey, Patrick, can you go blah, blah, blah?" Or I'll say, "Patrick, please do this." Or, "Patrick, we need to do this,"
yeah,
instead of, "Hey, do you have time to blah, blah, blah?" Or, "Hey, would it be okay if we blah, blah, blah?" Or, "How do you feel about blah, blah, blah?"
yeah,
So, okay, we're getting towards the end of the book, but then I wanna talk a little bit about Mel Robbins herself. So I think all of that is really great advice for the most part. Now, there are some little parts of the book that I disagree with. There is a bit of a overcomp not overcompensating. There is a bit of an overarching mentality of pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
yeah,
There is a lot of everything can be solved by the let them, let me, and I just don't find that to be true. And I don't know if Mel actually believes that that is true in every case. It does seem like she kinda does from the book. But, especially if you are going through something really extreme, I know we kinda talked about your experiences when you were younger, you needed external help.
yeah,
And I don't think that if someone would have given you this book and said, "Oh, read it," and you went through it and you had to let them and let me, I don't think that could have accounted for the kinda help you needed.
right.
But it's very much like go ahead.
Well, I think another book, and I know we didn't do a beans plane on this one, but we did read it for couples therapy, is The Five Love Languages.
Mhm.
And you very much had the same kind of outlook on this book as you did The Five Love Languages. Not,
It's a good tool.
yeah, it's a good tool, but that's all it is a tool, you
Well,
know? It's,
I like this book more than I like the 5 Love Languages
yeah,
because the 5 Love Languages was not backed with as much science as the Let
mm,
Them theory.
yeah,
Because the Let Them theory is at the end of the day almost a break away from stoicism,
yeah,
and that is like How we've learned so much in modern day about psychology and how the brain works,
right,
and she does do the work. It's a lot of people, like, in the 5 love languages, I felt like that the doctor or the man that wrote it, I felt that he was definitely giving when, like, pastors will have a sermon and they'll make up, like, a story to fit the sermon they're trying to tell?
yeah,
I'm not saying the man made up his scenarios, but it's almost like he had this idea and he created evidence to fit it.
yeah,
And I'm not saying Mel Robbins didn't do that at all, but she has so much more research that she actually took the time to go into.
right,
And she points that out a lot in her book. She'll say, you know, specialists say, professionals say, doctor such and such says.
yeah.
That's what I didn't like about the other book. I feel like the other book is not as much as a legitimate tool as something that is more science-backed.
Well, and I'm also saying that, I don't mean, I mean that in both books you've mentioned and how they believe that that's the only, I think that you think that they, what the fuck is that?
Get it?
Is it a moth?
I don't know, get it?
I think that, I think that you think, at least when trying to think through the author's eyes in too much of a literal sense, that you think that they think it's the only solution to the problems.
Yeah, I
And I
do
don't. think that that's the reality of it. And I think that's a common complaint that you have. Same thing with the, what was it, Growing Yourself Up book too. You read that and we're like, I think it's
as a whole good. Individually, I'll have complaints, but
yeah,
that's because, yeah, sometimes, and that's something I work on till this day, realizing that everyone else's reality is just as valid as your own, and there is not necessarily. I think I try to be such a fact-based person that whenever we talk about differences or whenever I evaluate something, I'm very much looking at, like, well, where are the facts? Where do the facts lie?
where's the beef?
Where's the beef? Well, and with the 5 love languages, unlike, say, attachment styles, there has been science to disprove that that is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And that's and I honestly, I went into that book knowing that information, and that already put me on a course of, but also there was some crazy stuff in that
Oh
book.
no, and I agree with that. But I think if you take it, it's like the same thing of like, you gather the essence that it's trying to put down and
And you
take
take the
that,
tools, yeah, that
and
it provides.
but don't take it as, take the lines that are boxing it in as being dotted. You can go through them. If they're solid lines, then that's where a problem arises. If you read anything, taking it as gospel, you're just setting yourself up for not being open-minded and being, good. But, use it as a tool, not the tool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's not the only tool we got. It's a very interesting mindset to see how people process and do things and set yourself up for success in a lot of different avenues. But it's not the only, it's not the end all be all. So, yeah, I like it.
So that's gonna pretty much conclude the book. There's a few chapters at the very end that talk about more specific statements. She ends the book with a very sweet, it's like, I love you, thank you for being here with me. You can do it. Like, very optimistic ending. And then she's like, and I have a few treats for you. And then the last couple of chapters are handling very specific situations.
Yeah.
I think it's a good listen. I would give it maybe 3 beans.
Out of 10?
3 out of 5.
Okay, I was like, damn.
No, I would give it like 3 out of 5. It's a good listen. It's not going to be for everyone. It definitely has some points that I contend with, but like, kind of like we were just saying, it's not.
Ain't the end all be all.
Yeah. What's your review of my beansplaining of this book?
I think you did a good job. Also, like how everything was presented as relatable. I feel like there's a lot of things which
You
I
don't have to go into this. I just need a beans. I need
oh,
1 to
you need
5
a
beans.
number?
I need a number.
I'm not a numbers guy.
That's your brother.
Yeah.
Was 1 to 5. How did I do?
Oh, how did you do?
Yeah,
You did 5. Perfect.
every time.
Every time, dude.
Well, I have to ask you that now because in our earlier episodes, I was really asking you to kind of rate the book based on my retelling.
Yeah.
But really, you just need to rate my retelling because
Yeah, your
I could be
retelling.
telling you anything.
Tori wakes up in the morning and just shits excellence. Okay.
Oh,
Everybody needs to know that.
wow.
Yeah.
No, I'm a goblin.
Yeah. Who shits excellence? All right.
Okay, so I do want to delve in just a little caveat about Mel Robbins as a person. And I
Oh,
think
God.
this is important.
Is she on the Epstein list?
Haven't looked. Oh, no! No, I don't think so. She seems like a pretty upstanding woman from my kind of point of view to an extent. I don't know a lot about her. She has not been. It's not that big of a deal, but there is a lot of chatter about it on the internet, so I wanna talk about what I've seen on the internet, and again, this is all, like, internet people stuff. This is not real life. Go ahead.
I want you to know, whenever people say there's a lot of chatter on the internet, I think of
The teeth.
no, I think
Oh.
of the Friday the 13th, the
Oh, yeah, that's what's on the internet.
Yeah, that's what I think of.
So, one complaint that a lot of people have about Mel Robbins is that this let them theory and a lot of her discussions, a lot of her motivational speaking engagements and her books talk a lot about some repackaged ideas. So one thing that when I first found out about who she was and what the let them theory was, someone was saying, "Oh, this is just repackaged stoicism." And while there may be some validity to that. I do think there's a benefit to her work because she is presenting it in a way that is more relatable to modern day people.
Yeah.
So I see that complaint, and I don't think it's invalid, but I do wanna say that I still think that the book is good regardless.
Yeah.
Now there is one thing that is actually a personal jab
Uh-oh.
at me. So, listeners might not know, I don't really have contact with my mom or my mom's side of the family, and that's not necessarily just a no contact choice, but it's a big it's actually very simple. We just don't really talk. And there's been points in my life where I've kind of, I've put more energy into reaching out to that side of the family, or I have, you know, evaluated my relationships or tried to connect on a personal level. And there's just been a disconnect. They're definitely we're definitely different, but it goes a little bit farther than that, and it's it's definitely some lore, but at the end of the day, whenever I talk about, my mom or anyone on that side of the family, I basically address it as no contact because that is basically what has happened. She says in a piece that she wrote for the New York Times, Mel Robbins says this, that life is too short to fight with your family. And she is specifically gearing towards this new wave of people kind of, like, cutting out their family or pieces of their family,
Right.
because it's more of a modern thing, right? Like, back in the day, you couldn't really do that, but, like, that was,
Your
no matter
lifeline, like,
yeah, like,
yeah.
no matter what kinda cards you were given, those were your cards, and now you get to of course, and to some extent, like, you could also still choose your family, but now, especially with the amount of connectivity we have globally, nationally, locally, you can really choose your circle. And I'm so thankful for the people I have in my circle. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your family. I'm thankful for all of the friends I have. And the fact that I don't really have any close family does not bother me. More specifically, the part of my family that does not have contact with me has not brought we talk about people filling your cup and you filling theirs. They never filled my cup. They were not interested in filling my cup. And I think if I would have continued to pour into those relationships and worked really hard at them, I would have been tore down as a person. And not necessarily by them, though I think that is a big part of it. There is just so much that goes into the your willingness to contact people or not contact people, including in your family.
Yeah.
And I don't make that choice, on a daily basis saying, "Oh, I'm choosing not to contact these people." No, these people have not had a relationship with me in a long time, and when they did have a relationship with me, they didn't really like me. And that's a sad thing to some people because they think, "Well, that's your family." But at the same time, I have so many people who do care about me. Why would I not focus on those people? Why would I not engage with these people who bring so much light and joy to my life? These people who, you know, and not saying that I get along with everyone and we see eye to eye all the time, but saying that these people love me and I love them. And it is a very loving support system that I have, and I'm so thankful for everyone and everything that I have. But regardless, I think you should actually be able to cut out anyone in your life,
Yeah.
especially for your own health and sanity.
Yeah, blood is not thicker than water. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
That saying is
The connections we make as humans, that's what's important.
if you wanna say that life is too short to not spend time with your family, I would live by the motto that family is your decision to make. Family is much more than genetics.
So, I read a piece specifically by this woman, Sharon Kwan. She wrote a piece that says, "I'm a family therapist who was estranged from my own parents for years. Here's what Mel Robbins doesn't get." And she goes on to say, she grew up in an Asian family with certain standards that she absolutely could not meet. And it affected her entire life. And she goes into why she doesn't believe Mel is right in this case. And I agree. Maybe Mel was trying to say that she thinks it's, like people are frivolously, like, kind of letting go of family members.
Just cutting off people for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case. As someone who feels that, you know, they had to mourn that part of a family they could have had if the relationships were better, I don't think anyone makes that choice of their own choosing. I think it's a really hard decision.
Yeah.
And it's not a frivolous thing.
Right.
So specifically, this author, Quan, says, "So no, Mel Robbins, I don't think life is too short to fight with your family. If anything, life is too short not to fight for what you need."
Yeah.
And I think that is amazing. I think that it wraps up my disagreement with what she had to say, which, again, that was not in this book from what I remember. That was just a piece that she wrote later on. And I think trying to address, the more common occurrence of people disconnecting from their families.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about self-help books a lot of time is you have to have a very healthy blend of fact and opinion kind of intertwined within one another. So something as opinionated as, well, life's too short to not or to fight with your family is definitely something that should not be included in the book. So, like, I'm glad that wasn't included in the book.
I definitely think it's an oversimplification.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's not that simple.
But it may, some people do this where they say something that is a bit alarming to drum up recognition. So
Yep.
I'm not really sure. But overall, hey, if you're looking for a self-help book, especially if you are younger and you're going through dating stages, give it a listen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we got for this week's Beansplaining. Thank you guys for hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye, Beans.
Bye.
Heyo. It's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, give us a follow to get your weekly dose of Beansplaining. Drop a review wherever you get your podcasts and let us know how we're doing. If you have any questions, complaints, or recommendations, please reach out to rinleyworks@gmail.com. That's RINLEEWORKS@gmail.com. Bye-bye, Beans.